Welcome back to the Daily Report and welcome to the Marketplace. Tonight we're delving into micro, small and medium enterprises like never before. Tomorrow we're going to be having the 1-year anniversary of the Hustler Fund. We're going to be breaking down the numbers. We're going to be telling you how exactly this has impacted Kenyans and where exactly it's going to be in the future. Already we have the Principal Secretary for the State Department for MSMEs who's going to be helping us a little bit to understand what exactly is happening there. Susan Mang'eni, welcome to TV47.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I appreciate this opportunity to be here and to share with the rest of the hustlers, the rest of the country, on the opportunity that we have in the Hustler Fund.
So a year ago when the Hustler Fund was launched, of course this was one of the manifestos that the Kenya Kwanza government is pushing on, access to finance for micro and small and medium enterprises, and of course some of, the people who have been left out when it comes to formal financing. If we could just break it down a little bit, do you feel like the Hustler Fund is exactly where the government wanted it 1 year later?
Yes, it is, and I must say that it has surpassed our expectations because picture this, at the time when we launched the Hustler Fund, we had just come out of a hotly contested campaign, general election, and the country was divided into the middle. So, and the Hustler Fund having been one of the signature program of President Ruto, and one of the key campaign promise that he made, remember, he said that within 100 days, he was going to launch this fund. And indeed, in under 90 days after taking over the office, we launched this fund. So that one shows that he's a person wa kusema na kutenda. Right. So yeah. And, but again, the question is, why Hustler Fund? Why did he just take it upon himself? Why did he drive it hard that we must just launch it, we must deliver this promise? Right. It's because this was not even his thinking. The idea behind Hustler Fund was not President Ruto's idea, but it was the idea of the people of Kenya who are at the bottom of the economic pyramid. You recall that during the 2022 campaign, a larger part of that year, last year, that is, it was just last year, right?
Yes.
It sounds like it's been a long time ago. President Ruto engaged in economic forum, economic conversation at the grassroots across the country, and in each and every corner of this country, in every county, he had conversation with the people at the bottom of the economic pyramid, who majority of them were our MSMEs, the mamambogas, the boda-bodas. And one central theme that ran around was the concern that people were having when it comes to accessing credit, accessing financing. And people were really, like pleading with him that we like you, we love you, our next president, but please, when you take over, the first thing that you need to do is to help us break the barriers with regard to access to financing. And maybe just to delve there a little bit deeper, is for us to ask yourself, what is the architecture of our economy? Where are we as a country? The truth is that majority of our population are not participating effectively in the economy. And one of the greatest barriers that hinders them from participating is access to easy and affordable credit. Because then around the same time, you realize that we were just also trying to recover from the pandemic, from the shocks that were caused by Corona. And also, you remember, this country also faced, the worst drought ever in like 40 years. Yeah, so because of that, most businesses went under, and most businesses that were affected were businesses, owned by MSME. And again, our country, nearly 98% of businesses you see in this country are MSME. And unfortunately, most of those businesses are micro, are those in informal sector. So then what picture does that paint? It paints that we have majority of our population are hardworking people. They try to do something. They have good ideas. they always try to do something to survive, but the environment, it has not been conducive, including the environment of credit markets. I mean, and you see also most of these people, who are they? They're young people, the women, the persons with disability, the vulnerable population that cannot access credit. They don't have collaterals like the traditional or rather conventional collaterals of lands, title deeds, or you know, or even logbooks and all those. They also have limited social capital, in the sense that, you know, in some financial institution, you can be asked if you have a guarantor. If you don't have, let's say, collateral and you have a guarantor, who can give you that access. But these people, they're limited in terms of the social. You know, if you're poor, you are really limited on who can believe in you. So I think then we had predators. I mean, lending predators who also took advantage now of the spread of mobile technology and especially mobile money innovation across this country, because we may not be doing well in certain aspects, but when it comes to mobile technology, the acceptability, I think each and every homestead is enjoying those services. So they took advantage of that. They came up with digital money, you know, lending, and they used to hawk it around. And because our population are desperate, they're in need of cash, they need something to do, they will fall for that. And so they were exposed to high and exploitative interest rates. Some of them were even paying 10% in terms of interest rates per day. So then we cannot have a population, and you can never grow the country, and especially put it back to the pathway of recovery when you have majority of your population being exploited, unable to run businesses that can grow and register certain key milestone. And you see, a business has to grow. For you to generate income, to generate profit, a business has to grow. So we're in a situation where we have a population that is willing to do something, but at the same time that, you know, that are disengaged economically, and therefore what is the impact of that? The impact of that to the economy and to these other population who are at the top of the economic pyramid is that now you bear the burden. And that's why the dependence ratio is very high. And you see now this population, some of us who are working, we are feeling that pressure because we have to take care of them. And how do we take care of them? Now through the taxes. Because now, so the whole thing was for us now to relieve even the population at the top of the economic pyramid, those few who are employed formally, who are doing businesses that are there, was to try and to reduce the pressure, is to expand economic participation by giving the people at the bottom of the economic pyramid an access to financing and means to do business in a conducive environment so that they can equally contribute to the economic growth and also promote their livelihoods, I mean enhance their livelihood, have something to put on the table.
Right, Susan, and we just have to look at the numbers a little bit.
Good.
It's been 1 year. 39.6 billion shillings accessed, around 28 billion payback rate. That's around 70% when it comes to repayment rate. And of course, there's the 5% saving aspect, 1.9 billion shillings. Let's talk about the saving aspect a little bit. Of course, the Cabinet Secretary had spoken about how 30% of this saving could be accessed in 1 year, and the 70% would be a normal saving scheme where you get it when you retire. The 30%. Kenyans are waiting. It's been a year. Can they access those funds?
Yeah, they're going to access.
Tomorrow?
Absolutely.
30th of November?
Absolutely.
So Kenyans have something to look forward
to. Absolutely. But again also, why the saving? That's also very, we need the people to understand why the savings. In this country, we have a workforce of 20 million Kenyans. And every year, we have close to 1 million coming in today to the job market.
Of course.
But unlike before, when previously, you know, what used to happen is that the turnover in terms of people who are retiring from the civil service or from the public sector was almost equal to people who are coming into the workforce. But we are a young nation, at an average age of about 17 years old.
Right.
A workforce, even in the civil service or even in the private sector, is very young. And you can tell even by looking at within this setup, in this studio, you see people here are fairly very young.
Yes.
So meaning we are not having people who are also, people who are also retiring so that they can pave space for other people to come in. So people who are formally employed in this country are only 3.5 million out of the 20 million potential workforce. Right. What does that tell us? It tells us that the 16.5 million people have to be enabled to create jobs. And how do we enable them to create jobs? There are certain factors that we have to look at. Number one, you cannot run a business also if you are not saving. Right. If you do not have some sort of social security where you can fall back in the event of let's say in the event of shocks. Like for example, when now corona pandemic visited us, a lot of our business went under. That mama mboga who was your favorite mama mboga, you stop by every evening from work, mwambie nikatie mboga kidogo kidogo hapo. Yes. Because of the social distance protocol, this mama mboga had to do what? Had to close up her business, and all of us started now going to supermarket, we call, you know, Uber food, Bolt food, and all those manner of things. So you see now the environment was not so conducive to small businesses, and especially worse of it if you are a micro business operator. So now what happens that if a country has 16.5 million people whom we now have to support to create jobs, to have something that they can put on the table to do, then we have also to look at what factors can make this person achieve that. But you cannot do much if you're also not saving. Right. So we are introducing and promoting a culture of saving as a also to provide a fallback, you know, opportunity in the event we are faced with shocks. In the event those MSMEs are faced with shocks, they don't have to close up or they don't have to sell all their wares, all their stock, you know, and then go back deeper into poverty. So one way of preventing that is to inculcate that culture of saving. So 5%, 70% of that goes to long-term saving. Right. Like a pension. Remember, I've said these people, nobody has employed them. They have employed themselves. But that one does not mean that time will not come when they will have to retire. Right. Whether you're employed or not, whether you're doing your own business, time will come when your board will even say enough is enough. Right. Now you need to sit somewhere and somebody has to take care of them. Instead of our people retiring to poverty, retiring to indecency, it's good to start now providing them with an opportunity where they can save. And by the way, one of the most, the common feedback we've gotten from our beneficiary, which is running across, is that opportunity to save. Because people are telling us, oh, do you know, as a mama mboga, what time will I have or will I make to run to the mainstream back, for example, to go and save my 100 bob that I have made every day? Right. And again, because of so much fraudsters, you know, like technology also comes with a lot of bad things. And so people wanted, where can we save so easily? Which platform do you have to save that we can trust? And of course, you can always trust the government because it will always ensure that they protect you, they protect your savings and everything. So many people, especially our beneficiary, has actually applauded that saving component. Right. And we have so many other people who just who are interacting with the hustler for not to borrow but just to save. You recall that in March this year, we launched the voluntary saving. So when we launched, and we never even made noise about it. We never even went to the media to say, hey, you can now save voluntarily. Right. When President Ruto pronounced himself about that opportunity, the Kenyans who started saving, like our top saver today, as at 1st November this year, a gentleman who lives in Korogocho. I mean, this gentleman has been able to mobilize 634,000 shillings. Right. And his limit, if went to his limit, is only 800 shillings. So you ask him, what motivated? He says saving. And I've been able to save within this 1 year because I want to start up my own business. I want to buy a truck because he's in transport industry, but he works for somebody.
Right.
So there are people who are feeling so much relief that we have this option. I have been outside this country and I've interacted with the Kenyans in the diaspora, and they tell us their story, how they usually get cheated out, they usually get frauded whenever they send money back home, either through friends and to some extent even some families also do them those games. They say, build for me a house, and by the time when you come back, you're thinking you have your house, there is no house. So we heard about this affordable housing, and they were saying, by the way, there's a way through which we can save and start paying little mortgage, you know, for those housing, because at least they trust government. And after what has happened, I mean, the experience we've had so far in the Hustler Fund has showed us one thing. The people really wanted the government hand, the government presence, the government to go to where they are, to feel them, to work with them, to hold their hands.
Right.
So that's why this initiative has been embraced, because they feel secure. Their savings are going to be secure. But again also, the top borrower of the Hustler Fund, today as we speak, has been able to borrow cumulatively 4.5 million.
Right.
His savings, attendant to that 5%, is about 225 million, thereabout.
Right.
So what does this mean? If you are to save today, because you know the limits, the highest limit as a per today is 6,000 shillings, and this is big. Some people at the level of the top borrower, those who started off with a good limit of 3,000. Remember, we're going to grow it up to 50,000 with time. As you borrow, you grow. So when we enhance the limit around March, again, this gentleman's limit went up to 6,000. So that's the top limit that we have today. So this gentleman has borrowed transacted 814 times to the tune of 4.5 million. If you look at his saving, he's been able to mobilize 225,000.
And within, sorry to cut you off, and within those limits and confines, we must look at the numbers from every angle, Susan. We are talking about 39.6 billion that has already been disbursed. However, the repayment is 28 billion, which is 70%.
Around there.
So there is a 30% that is a debt that has not been repaid. A lot of the time, financial institutions have their own forms of security to ensure that there is a payback rate. What exactly is the government's payback plan?
First of all, the repayment is close to about 70 to 73% if you were to work out. And well, that question has been asked on numerous occasions.
Yes, and the CS
and sometime
2 days ago was talking about how we should focus on the positives.
Absolutely.
Right? The repayback is 70%, but that, you know, around 30% give or take.
And let me tell you why I support the CS and why I think like the CS and why we as a government, we see it the way the CS was explaining here, is that why Hustler Fund? Hustler Fund has come to build a capacity, the lending preparedness of our population, people who do not have collaterals, so that at the end of the day now, they can start building their credit score. So their credit score now becomes that collateral. We are nurturing good behavior among our population. And most of the time, people do not repay. People who borrow for a purpose do not fail to repay because they want not to repay. Sometimes they don't repay because of the circumstances, because of the situation. Probably commercial bank may not hear them out. As we hear them out, because like I told you, 16.5 million people need to be enabled to do a job, to create their own jobs, their own self-employment opportunities. And we are saying the greatest barrier is access to credit. So if we cannot enable them to build, to come up with a new collateral system, give them an opportunity to repair their credit score. Because remember also around the time when His Excellency the President was taking over the office, close to 8 million Kenyans were in CRB. Close to 8 million.
Now 3 million have been pardoned?
No, and they were all, by the way, they were all pardoned.
Right.
Because what the president did, he intervened. And if you can recall also, in under 1 week after being sworn in, he had an engagement with the private sector partners, especially the financial institution. They had an engagement with the telcos.
Right.
And he pleaded with them that we cannot run an economy where close to 8 million Kenyans, 18 years and above, who are in the most productive, age, most productive age and most productive, years of their time, being locked out of the economy. Are you seeing that? So we needed it. It was then what he was telling them, it's our responsibility as key players in these sectors and in the economy to pull them along, to rebuild them. So the government said, look, and the president said, for me, I'm willing to offer them a second chance.
Okay.
I'm willing to rehabilitate them. I'm willing to launch a fund that can rehabilitate them back, and we give them a second chance to now redeem themselves, start, repairing their credit score,
right.
Their credit worth, and also growing their credit score. I know if you traveled around the world, especially in those developed economy, you realize that they value the value they attach to a credit card is much higher.
System, yes.
Is much higher than what they attach to a debit card.
Right.
The value they attach to a credit card is much higher than the value they attach to cash. You may want to purchase something, you take cash, they say no. Purchase with the credit. Because they know when you purchase with your credit card, there's some sort of, people believe you. You have recorded some credit, credibility,
yes.
You're a good person, you're a good borrower who can be trusted. So that is the culture that we want to harness here in our country, to inculcate among our population. And again also, for example, also borrowing the practice of the Muslim community.
Right.
And you know that if today you wanted to borrow money, I mean, they don't need to know you.
Right.
They don't even to know where you are from. They just trust you. I mean, it's a trust system that can make us unlock access to credit to the majority of Kenyans who are at the bottom of the economic pyramid. Because if we keep on saying we need collateral, and if we keep on saying we are going to punish you, we are going to throw you to CRB, we are going to arrest you, we are going to do, we are not helping this person, because we want this person to be actively engaged so that he or she can put something on the table, if not even for anybody else, but at least for himself.
Right.
So what you're doing, we will continue nurturing good behaviors by demonstrating those who, those with good, who have borrowed, those successful borrowers who are good borrowers, letting the rest of Kenyans who are still lagging behind know that you are not punishing the government of Kenya.
Right.
You're not punishing anybody. You're just locking out yourself from the economy, because we've given you a chance, a very, a very smooth chance to redeem yourself.
Right. And Susan, hopefully the end justifies the means, because now that's 30% that is hanging in the balance. We're going to go for a very short break, but when we come back, we're going to be looking at these numbers, and we're going to be looking at the rates. 8%, there has been a little bit of an economic turmoil. Are they going to be revised either upwards or downwards? Find out when we return for the marketplace.
Get ready to witness a groundbreaking Kenyan in collaboration with the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics and the GIZ Kenya is set to unveil revolutionary study findings that will reshape our understanding of the film industry's impact on Kenya's economy. This groundbreaking report will quantify the contribution of Kenya's film industry to Kenya's GDP. It's not just about making movies, it's about the economic powerhouse behind the scenes. This report isn't just about numbers, it's a game changer. Be the first to gain insight into Kenya's film industry. discover its economic significance, and explore its potential. Be part of history. The release of the film industry's satellite account, FISA, is not just a report, it's a catalyst for change, a guide for decision-making, and an inspiration for the film industry.
Let's clear pimples. Step 1. Acne's Creamy Wash is a foamy and gentle cleanser that removes sebum and dirt in the pores. Step 2. Acne Soothing Toner maintains skin pH. Step 3. Acne Sealing Gel quickly clears pimple-causing bacteria. Mentholatum Acnes clears, cares, and helps prevent pimples. Roto.
Ni aje watu wangu, karibuni kwenye studio zetu za MBET, na leo tuna furaha kuwaeleza kwamba tuna mshindi wa bonus ya MB8 ambaye alipata mechi 7 kwa 8. Wacha tuweze kuzungumza naye.
Naitwa Peterson Macharia, nimetoka Naivasha, kijiji naitwa Kamere, na kule ndio mimi naishi.
Unafanya kazi gani kule Kamere?
Pale mimi ni bodaboda, licha ya kwamba mimi mzee lakini mimi mchapa bodaboda.
Ulijuaje kuhusu MBET?
Kijana wangu aliweza kunielezea, lakini sasa sikuweza kumpuuza.
Sasa nataka nikukabidhi ile check yako ya bonus yako ya Kenya shillings 50,000 ili uweze kujihisi kama mshindi.
Atashukuru kabisa mimi.
Sasa hii ndio check yako ya 50,000 bonus ya MB8 ya zile mechi 7 kwa 8.
Nimeshukuru kabisa, na yenyewe nahisi kushinda. Juu nimejaribu kuingi pesa nimekuliwa, mpaka mnapata marafiki wanakuambia wewe ni pesa unapoteza bure.
Mwekezaji, pia wewe waweza kuwa mshindi. Unachohitaji kufanya ni ingia kwenye tovuti yetu mbet.com uweze kuregister, ama tuma neno join kwenye 29098.
Welcome back to the Marketplace. Tonight we're talking all matters the Hustler Fund. It will be 1 year old tomorrow. We're looking at its future, we're looking at the past, we're comparing numbers, we're comparing notes, and we're even looking at some of the aspects. It's 8% per annum when it comes to the interest rate, and also 5% in saving. However, there has been in the last year a lot of economic turmoil. There have been financial revisions. The Cabinet Secretary, Susan, was talking about a possible rate revision tomorrow. Tomorrow is the 30th of November. We're talking about changing not only loan limits, but even the rates that they're going to be paid for. Could you just give us an insight on that?
Well, whatever we will want to announce tomorrow, I really don't wish to preempt. However,
just a hint.
However,
yes.
One thing I know is that Kenyans have been asking us, and we have received a lot of feedback in terms of number one, when can I access my my savings, when can I access, when will my limit grow?
Right.
Like today, there was so many, when we say talking about, the Hustler Fund, since last week actually, our inbox are full of, I've been borrowing every day and I pay daily, or I pay within time, but my limit is still stuck there, and
yes.
all those questions. I mean, remember, this is an intervention. This fund is an intervention. It's not like any other financial product that we even have in the market. Not even like most of those catalytic funds that
right.
the government operates. The likes of the Women Enterprise Fund and all those funds. This is just an intervention that is out also to help us correct the market failures.
Right.
The first market failure, which I've already alluded to it, was the fact that majority of Kenyans could not be served, were not banked.
Right.
And even if they were banked, they were being underserved because they couldn't afford, or rather they didn't have access to collaterals, I mean conventional collaterals that every mainstream financial institution will be looking for. The other market failure was the fact that after the corona pandemic, it sank many MSMEs, and many Kenyans went into CRB.
Right.
And the interesting thing in this country, in our economy, is that CRB became like policemen. You hear about CRB, you are like, we'll send your name to CRB. It's like the way
it's a
the people always have been looking at policemen before the reforms came into being.
Right.
You know, you couldn't trust a policeman, even if that policeman was your spouse. Because the moment he or she walks out of your house, of your doorstep, you're like, it's a policeman. So this is how now even CRB was. I mean, it was so much negative about it. Yet, there was also other positive elements of CRB if we focus on positive credit, sharing, credit information sharing, which we are now trying also to propel up. So correcting the so much negativity in the market about CRB, that only people could share negative credit info about their customer, wasn't a good thing in our society. Then there was the element of, now how do we bring back these 8 million Kenyans who are in CRB listed negatively? We needed to correct that. But who are we going to correct this one with? Again, we look into the market and see who are the players, who are the key players in the market. And this is how now His Excellency the President reached out to the private sector players, those in the telecoms and those in the financial institution, and say, look, it's not only the government and the people of Kenya who are feeling this, but even you people who are in business, you're also feeling the pain because your customer base is also hurting, is shrinking. If each and every year we encourage this trend to go on, where a number of Kenyans will sink into CRB, will be listed negatively, then one day you wake up, you'll end up having no customer. So because it's the business of government to facilitate the private sector to grow, we say, come on, let's sit together and intervene in the market, intervene for Kenyans, see how we can be able to rebuild their credit score. So that was it. And then because of lack of these people being served by mainstream financial institution, the predators were all over us. The Shylocks were all over with the exorbitant interest rates. For example, if you're being charged 10% per day, per year is 360. 60%. I mean, which kind of business can you grow with such exorbitant interest rates?
Right,
so
but
then
Susan, sorry to cut you off. One would argue that the private sector does not have the luxury of the government. You know, they're not very people-centric. Most of the time, they are more profit-centric. And this, of course, throws us into wondering what exactly, once again, is the payback plan for the Hustler Fund? How, say, for example, the 30% of these Kenyans, knowing that the credit scores might be, damaged, still decide not to pay. What are the consequences?
I don't think they're going to decide. And I refuse to agree that we have a Kenyan who has means and just refuses to pay.
Right.
And to demonstrate that, in a couple of months ago, when we introduced the second product, which is the group loan, and one of the eligibility criteria was that you should not have an outstanding loan in your the personal loan, that is the first product. We saw so many Kenyans coming on board to pay. As it is today, that product, we have lent out 168 million.
Right.
But the money that has been repaid as of today morning is 428 million, which makes us now start wondering, is it really that Kenyans don't have money? Or is it a question that we don't give them, we don't understand them, we don't give them more opportunities? And that's why even with the Hustler Fund, we are trying to address that and to incentivize and to motivate them by introducing other, diversifying our products to give them enhanced limits, enhanced opportunity to access more. And as it is, having reached out to about 22 million Kenyans, because we are close to 21.7 million there, almost 22 million Kenyans of adult age, 18 years and above. What does that tell you? That you have nearly reached out to almost entire adult population in this country, because we are a population of 50 million Kenyans. So if we are serving close to 22 million Kenyans, and majority of our population are young people under 18 years of age, it means you are serving the whole universe. In other words, Hustler Fund has tremendously reached out to almost everybody. So what is going to happen is that if you can prove through Hustler Fund that you're a good borrower, you're a good borrower in terms of borrowing and repaying, and you are only for you to borrow and repay within the time frame that you commit to serve, you must be borrowing for a purpose. So we're also trying to promote opportunity-driven entrepreneurship, opportunity-driven borrowing. And if you're going to borrow for a purpose, you're going and you become a good borrower, you're going to expose yourself to higher opportunities, to even much better opportunities. It's not just about financing that can help someone do business. You also require market linkage support. You also require training. There's so much that you require in this ecosystem. So if you decide to be bad and to say, I'm not interested, and this is the only opportunity that you have to build yourself, your capacity to build, to create your own job and to put food on the table, you're going to lock yourself from there. So what you're doing, we are still committed to nurturing good borrowing behavior. We are still committed to ensuring that even if you fall back, we'll still come back and give you an opportunity to do what? Repay. And that's why we're encouraging them also to save. Because like now, this gentleman who has saved 225,000, he has something. He's not the same like when he started. Today he can even walk to a mainstream bank and ask for a loan, because at least he has something. He believes, I have something. Now we have catalytic fund within also our MSME ecosystem. If you're a good borrower and you're a young person, and we, we build your capacity, we support you to access even an agpo tender, for example, where you need, you need more money, you need probably like 1 million or so, and you don't have a collateral. Why would you not take up that opportunity? We will see you through to that opportunity by just looking at how you've been interacting with the Hustler Fund.
And speaking of interacting, Susan, so essentially the spectrum is really broad, right? So we're looking at a situation where we are focusing as a country, because the Hustler Fund does belong to all of us.
Yes.
We're looking at a reward system in contrast to having potential consequences for funds that are not returned.
But who says that the funds will not be returned?
Right.
As we keep on looking at the opportunity, remember the other day, His Excellency the President said that Kenyans, I think during the State of Nation address, he said, we're at a level where we should never define Kenyans by their challenges, but rather by the opportunity. It is our business to make sure, as a government, to make sure that every citizen is economically engaged.
Right.
So, and if you look at even the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the principle about not leaving anyone behind. We as a government, we want to bring people on board and make sure we enterprise your space. And the first thing to do to enable you enterprise your space is to give you universal access, like almost 100% access to credit as and when you need it, so that you can be able to do your hustle. What you're saying, I still do not want to believe that there are Kenyans who have decided, who have means, they're doing something, and they have decided, I'm borrowing and I'm not going to repay. We want to go down there and ask yourself, now that we have had this experience of 1 year, we want to ask those Kenyans. We will follow up with them because we know them. We know where they are. We know where, you know. So we want to follow and have a conversation with them. Try to understand what could be the challenges. You know, probably some of those people could be saying you have failed to repay. You never know. maybe hata hawako duniani anymore. You know, and statistics are still telling us they borrowed once, they refuse to pay.
Right.
But we need to understand, we want to meet these people, and we'll be reaching out to them. What is the problem? Which capacities do they have? What are the challenges?
Right.
Where do they reside? What are those specific contexts that could make them not want to repay? Of course, there could be those ones who are not repaying because maybe they have politicized the whole thing.
Right.
But I can tell you, looking also at the returns and the figures we are having across the country, even in those areas you would have said were the opposition stronghold,
Right.
people are borrowing and people are repaying,
Right.
showing that it can't be that someone else has influenced you not to repay. It could be your own personal challenges, and if it's a behavior, we have an opportunity to help you, to transform you into a good borrower, because that is your key, that you have to access other opportunities that can help you unlock your potential, which I believe every Kenyan, every human being has got unlimited potential.
Right.
So we are still going to nurture, introducing new products, also scaling them up and trying to understand why they're in that situation, why they have not repaid. And by the way,
Yes.
you will also give us thumbs up that when you launch this fund, people are like, this is not going to, it's not sustainable, Kenyans will not repay, they're in hardships, you know, all those things were said. Oh, we cannot borrow this thing because it was political, we can't borrow, we will borrow, it's our money, and it. But this 428 million that has been now repaid back, it just shows that Kenyans are not what people think they are. Kenyans are hardworking, as we have always known.
Right.
You give them an opportunity, you give them time, you work with them, you follow them up.
Right.
And you know, and you know, Kenyans, they don't like being harassed as such. You know,
Yes,
you
yes.
just understand them and work with them. And I think that's the approach that we are going to use. To use to try and bring them back to reality and try just to enable them to repay and also have an opportunity to participate in our economy, to do something that is meaningful to their life.
Right, Susan. And speaking of the economy, I had asked for a hint of what could be spoken about tomorrow. TV47 just wanted, to get a little bit of an insight in front of, before all else.
Oh, no.
However, the cabinet secretary had spoken about how the loan limits must now align with the current socio-economic landscape to ensure that maybe the government's financial support remains. It's a delicate balance now.
I think what we'll be doing tomorrow,
right,
we are not just celebrating, but also we are celebrating opportunities that now are beginning to show up in the MSME ecosystem. We are celebrating great partnership, very unique partnership that you are having with the private sector players. And then also what we'll be doing, of course, we'll be rewarding. And the reward that we have in this sector, since this is a credit line, is to ensure that those who have been borrowing, if we are good borrowers, they've been borrowing and repaying, showing that they have a purpose why they are borrowing, they can be able now to access higher limit. And again, your limit could be 50,000, for example, but you choose on what you want to access.
Right.
That means you have discipline, you have some sort of financial discipline. So a lot of questions that we've had Kenyans, especially our beneficiaries, they've asked us questions, they made observation, and they have also made inputs as per what needs to be done. And what we'll be doing tomorrow is to respond to some of those concerns. And of course, by the limits, of course, there are those Kenyans that will experience enhanced limits tomorrow. Those Kenyans that will have an opportunity again also to access their savings, and all those will be there. How long will? And remember, we never had a prototype. And because people are asking, why did it take us this long? It's because, first of all, this is digital lending, digital saving. Requires some sort of framework. We needed to just make sure we get it right. It's taken us a whole year to try, like we've been retesting, testing, seeing how is it turning out. Is it meeting the concerns of Kenyans? Because every time we have also been listening to the feedback from Kenyans, and when they say, oh, this is taking long, we come back to the product and we tighten a little bit, we relax a little bit, we put those necessary contours and what. But so I think tomorrow is loaded with a lot of, good thing. So Kenyans should be expectant to see what will happen tomorrow. But then just on the question of the interest rates, I believe we have the lowest interest rates, and if you are to compare with what happens in the market, is the lowest because it is per year. And the Kenyans who are borrowed most, borrowing more than even 2 times a day in some instances. How much interest rates does that Kenya pay? Very insignificant interest rates. But yet this Kenyan has been able to access cumulatively such amount of money. If they were borrowing from what was there, 10% per day or everything, this Kenyan will not have, I'm sure he will not have accumulated 4.5 million as at today, because then there will be that burden of the interest rates that this Kenya, which probably would have put him off. And when we had this conversation with the good borrowers, our top borrowers, and all they say is because according to them, they don't even see any, they don't even feel the interest rates, because they say many a times we've had a need, you need money on day-to-day basis to buy stock, to restock, and especially those who are in the Kadogi economy. You're buying milk, you're buying sugar, you're buying this, you want to restock and sell it out. But it becomes so expensive if you are to borrow elsewhere. But again, we are also trying to make sure that the private sector can get to know that actually you can still do business and have that large customer base of Kenyans reach out to everybody and still be in business without those exorbitant interest rates. We can still achieve this within the single-digit interest rate.
So is that a hint that it will remain within the single digit? Because we
yes.
Insignificant.
It is. It will be single-digit.
So single-digit interest. Yes. Whether it's 8 to 9, 8.5, 9.5.
It can only get better.
It can only get better, Kenyans. You had it here first. It can only get better. Now you have something to look forward to tomorrow, and in the spirit of looking
single digits, it can only get better.
It can only get better.
It can't get worse. But I just want to reach out to Kenyans and say, this is the key to opportunities, to massive opportunities that we have. And we have opportunities even being brought on board through the private sector. And by the way, I didn't say this, I should have said this at the onset, that the celebration, the first anniversary of the Hustler Fund also coincides with the first anniversary of the State Department of MSME.
Fantastic. Happy birthday to your State Department.
Thank you, because this is the first time.
Yes, the very first of
independence that you are having the State Department of MSME. And what it has helped us to achieve is that to bridge the coordination gap that existed, that made so many actors within this MSME ecosystem to operate in silos. So through the State Department of MSME, we are trying to break silos in supporting our MSME to grow. And we are creating massive opportunities that can be leveraged on. So for example, in this ecosystem, you are a Hustler Fund beneficiary. You had those who are saying, what can 500 do? But if you can show us that you have a good credit score, you have an opportunity to be scaled up to other funding opportunities like Youth Fund, like Uwezo Fund, like Kenya Industrial Estates. And if you want even more that you cannot achieve within the government space, you have the private sector, you have the banks, the KCB, the families, equity banks and all those to borrow from. And they will all be trusting your credit score, which you will have rebuilt
And
within the Hustler Fund.
Right. And speaking of the credit fund, let's just roll one clip so that we can see what the future looks like, especially when it comes to the credit score system. What does this mean for the financial system of the country?
Good. I think we have a much bigger story, a much positive story to celebrate. Yes, we have people who have not paid. Over 1 year, we've built our own data. We've built our own character. And we're going forward from now on 30th, we will now begin to use, even the next limit, even the matching, we'll use our own Hustler-generated credit score.
The Hustler-generated credit score, right? Mm-hmm. What exactly does this mean? Now we have all this data from the previous year. We have, data from all the borrowers. We're trying to build a credit, score system that might even be used by financial institutions. You've spoken about how important it is to have an integrity-based borrowing and even, repayment kind of situation for Kenyans. What is it?
Well, so now the credit score, we use, first of all, we are not doing this as a government alone. We are doing this with the private sector.
Right.
We were riding on the experience in financing for micro. They've had the microfinancing experience. We have used the experience of digital lending that most of the mainstream, again, financial institutions have. And we said we can get to the middle.
Right.
So we came up and agreed on the baseline parameters that we are going to use to start building or, to weight someone in terms of which score does this person, does this person deserve. The data that has been used is just a data that was derived from your experience in digital products, especially when M-Pesa came up, mobile money. What was your experience? And again, one of the eligibility, especially on the personal loan, which is the one now is building up the credit score. So was looking at how long have you interacted with, first of all, you must have had a telephone line.
Yes.
How long have you been with that telephone line, for example? You realize there's some people who could have taken advantage. You just want to register your line today, access the money, and you boom in the thin air where nobody will see you there. So, but again, also we're looking, if you've been with that line for at least 90 days, for 3 months, it shows that you are known. You are within that space. And then also, secondly, there are certain parameters that data gave us, the data analysts were able to give us with regard to your experience on mobile money, mobile money services. How were you using it?
Right.
For example, you had people complaining when we launched, especially the Wadozis, saying that, why is my credit score lower, my credit limit lower, like 500 shillings, and my drivers, my bodyguard is like 3,000.
Right.
It is because it's whenever you want to send out money,
That's
probably
use
them, the historical aspect to use. But the beauty of this is that we are sitting down with the private sector to work on this baseline credit score so that they can also trust it. When the time comes when we want to reintegrate these people now back to their space, they can trust it and not to, again, go back to the conventional collaterals, but then just focus on the credit score. But we'll keep on also improving credit score based on the new products that also come. For example, the group product, we also introduce metrics. We want to understand which kind of business are you doing. If you are, a chama, for example, because group products is for chama. When we are trying now to digitalize also table banking in this, we want to understand, do you do business? How is that, where is your business, in which value chain, so that we can also start helping you to get linked up to the market. And because and those are going also to be metrics as we move into other products that you're going to introduce.
Right, and maybe Kenyans would now start being a little bit hesitant, especially when it comes to digital footprint. What have you been posting? Is that going to be accessed in the metrics? As we conclude, just a one-liner. The metrics, how wide is it?
The metrics we will keep on improving.
Right.
You know, it depends with the context. For example, financing cannot be, you can't have uniform kind of, it's not homogeneous.
Right.
You see. Your financial needs are not homogeneous.
Right.
Your business and wherever you reside, for example, MSMEs which reside in the urban space, you see their financial needs could be different depending on that context from the MSMEs who reside in the rural areas.
Right.
So we want to start going specific, coming up with a specific financial product that speaks to your context, to your business needs, to your business financial needs, to the value chain that you are in, you know, to the complexity of your business. So as we now start moving towards business-oriented borrowing,
Right.
business-oriented, you know, lending,
Right.
we will now develop other metrics
Right.
that will enable us, you know, assess
Right.
your credit score, which can also now determine the kind of limit that you should be given.
Right,
You know.
Thank
as
you
an
so much
MSME.
for your insights. Susan Mang'eni, PS MSME, talking about a possibility of a credit scoring system, a very first world approach in assessing how exactly you can borrow things or moving away from collateral. If you used your car, your shamba, now you can move, you know, trustworthiness. How exactly, how good is your word? Thank you so much for joining us here on TV47. This has been The Marketplace. We have been talking about the Hustler Fund. Happy birthday to the Hustler Fund. Happy birthday to you, Hustler, for the last 1 year. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Hibak Said. Have yourselves a wonderful Wednesday.
Thank you.
My name is Nesanya, and this was me 15 years ago.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
He killed my child! He killed my people!
And you are supposed to deliver to us 6,000 albinos.
Usiogope, those bad men will no longer be coming for you.